You're listening to the Gambling Gauchos, part of the Stake in the Plains Content Network and the Dave Campbell's Republic of Football podcast feed. Just a couple of casino caballeros talking Texas Tech, betting on the Big 12 and beyond. Now, here's Kyle Jacobson and Rob Bro, live from the Cardinal Sports Center studio.
Welcome into the Gambling Gauchos. I'm Rob Bro. He's Kyle Jacobson. We have some friends with us today here in the live Cardinal Sports Center studio. Father's Day just around the corner. If you want to get your Father's Day geared up, go to Cardinals, mycardinalsports.com, or in person right outside the Loop on Slide Road here in Lubbock, Texas. Let's get right down to business as part of the Republic of Football content feed. The Ramblin' Rush Ryan and Rush show. Sorry, I butchered that. And also Ethan Bock, all the highlightest of highlightingest West Virginia experts on the show today to take us through the expert and opinion of West Virginia football. How you doing, guys?
Doing great. How are you?
You know, we're hanging in there.
There you go. That's all you can do. Summertime, just after Memorial Day, waiting for the football season. Right, Memorial Day hits. It's like, yeah, you know what? It's time for football.
It was finally hot today in Lubbock. It was 94 degrees. It's been rainy, unseasonably, and so it really felt like summer today, and had me excited for football season.
Love it.
I think what are we, 77, 78 days out from week 0? So, yeah, can't get here soon enough. We can only talk so many previews. I'm ready to talk some games.
June's like the dead month of the entire sports calendar year. August can't get here quick enough.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle, you got something over there?
I think your intro was really good, Rob. All of it, so good.
Oh man, I try. Sometimes I stumble out the blocks, but we can get it. All right, we got 5 people on the stream tonight. We'll try to figure it out, go back and forth, and get some West Virginia previews in. First of all, are we all trusting the climb today?
Of course.
We need to give a shout out to our man Irrational. We were just Irrational. We were just talking about him. He's trusting the climb. You're 5, the 5th rung of the ladder that's still kind of staying on the same level. We keep climbing, but we still are on that same level. So got to put your faith in something, right?
Yeah, no, you're right out the gate with that question. It's year number 5. Neil's 22 and 25. I think it's safe to say this is a big year for Neil Brown, West Virginia football. I think that's an understatement. So, yeah, big year in Morgantown ahead.
You know what Rob calls Neil Brown?
What's that?
Hold on.
Neil Brown, like Kneel Brown.
No, hold on. We have some history with Neil Brown. He was here.
Yeah,
He was a lovely
he was our
guy.
OC.
He was a coordinator for Seth Diggy.
Yeah.
Yeah, did y'all know that Seth Dagey went to Texas Tech and he had a brother?
Yeah.
That didn't get offered by Texas Tech. All right. How do we want to get into this, Kyle? Do we want to get right into the season? Do we want to get into Morgantown first? What do you want to do?
Well, let's first. Why don't y'all kind of introduce yourselves? Because
Sure.
I'm sure some of our Twitter followers are familiar with you all, but maybe some of our listeners aren't. So, kind of introduce what you do, covering West Virginia sports, and then we'll get into the conversation.
Yeah, I guess I'll lead off. I'm Rush Bishop of the Ryan and Rush show. I'll let Ryan introduce himself, but we started our West Virginia-based show back in early November of this past year, 2022. Ryan's like I said, I'll let him introduce yourself, but this is kind of how it all comes together. Former video coordinator. So we started right in time for basketball season, covering the team there. But we're really excited to cover our first football season. Ryan and I grew up together in Northern Virginia, but we both say we're converted West Virginians. I'm actually located in Morgantown, West Virginia. Went here for undergrad, and then moved back here when the pandemic was here because it's Morgantown, wild and wonderful, almost heaven. So it's great to live out here in West Virginia, and definitely excited to walk across over to the stadium here come football time and And at least the tailgating, we'll have that going. I trust the climb when it comes to tailgating in that parking lot. 10 out of 10 national champions every year. We got the hospital behind us, quick liver pump, go back into for the second half, and you're good to go. So that climb, or crawl, I should say, I'm trusting.
Yeah. Ryan McIntyre, people call me Moneyline Mac now that I am out of the coaching industry. I was Bob Huggins' video coordinator for 3 years, started as a manager for Hugs and went over to South Carolina. For Frank, we went to the Final Four and ultimately ended up back in Morgantown. So I've spent a decade of my life in West Virginia, like Russ said. Grew up in Northern Virginia, but a converted West Virginian. Consider Morgantown home. A lot of great memories, a lot of good people. Decided I was ready for something different, something not as chaotic. AKA, I got tired of the NIL and the transfer portal, so I was ready to get out of college athletics. What was it? Last June, and I'm on this content side of things with the Ryan and Russ show, the college experience, and we got a show coming up here in the next month that a lot of people are going to be excited about that are Big 12 fans. So stay tuned on that. But excited to get with the gambling gotchas because I love West Texas. I that's my favorite place in the Big 12 other than Morgantown. So always excited to talk Texas Tech Red Raiders.
Love it.
Yeah, Ethan Bock. I cover mostly the West Virginia basketball team for West Virginia Sports Now. I also cover the transfer portal for the Portal Report. Shout out transfer portal, Ryan.
You can have it all.
I am also a converted West Virginian, I'd say. Originally from Cincinnati. It's where I am right now. This city, I can speak for UC. They're excited to transfer over to the Big 12, as well, I assume, Houston, UCF, and BYU. So, and I'm excited for that 14-team Big 12. It's going to be exciting. I don't know if I can trust the climb year 5 like Irrational, but I don't know. Like they're gonna be an exciting team, I think, regardless, win or lose.
Ethan, do you think Dan Dakich is trusting the climb?
That's the last person that's trusting the climb. He's not even trusting Bob Huggins' coaching. So
that was one of the funniest days on Twitter because, like, I know that obviously y'all's fan base is probably familiar with him, but that tweet, he was like, "Little Ethan, blah, blah, blah." I was like, who is this guy? And I did like 2 seconds of research and I was like, okay, this makes like a little bit of sense. But apparently he was beefing pretty hard with you and like was waiting for your downfall on Twitter.
Yeah,
like,
I just let him talk. I just let him talk. He's not gonna stop talking. So I just let him talk and I just don't respond. There's no point.
That's hilarious. Well, let's talk some football. We referenced the climb and Neil Brown. Honestly, I thought he was going to be canned last year. Maybe even though y'all didn't get to bowl eligibility, maybe the wins down the stretch against Oklahoma and Oklahoma State kind of held him over one more year. I thought there were some good, candidates out there if West Virginia did want to make a move, but they stuck with him another year. I know y'all have a new offensive coordinator. Let's see. I know y'all lost JT Daniels, lost your top receiver. So I guess let's start on the offensive side of the ball. What do you have coming back? Tell us about the new offensive coordinator, maybe kind of the playing style fans can expect from West Virginia this season.
So can I actually, before we get into the offense, take it one step back? Because you threw a lot in the beginning with you thinking kind of Neil Brown and should have, probably been fired last year. And you're absolutely right. But there's a big thing that needs to be noted here is that we also have a new athletic director, Ren Baker from North Texas. And I think what keeping with Ren Baker coming, what that does is in keeping Neil Brown, that buys him time, right? To kind of find that right candidate for, what could be eventually the head coach. I mean, we'll go down the schedule. Neil technically, of course, has 2 more years left. I could see 2 things in terms of him, happening is I could see number 1, it be kind of like a Wisconsin situation last year with Chris, where it's like you kind of get to, and we'll get to it. The pit game's going to be everything this year. And that's when you're going to start to be like, okay, we can keep seeing where this goes, or we're going to just talk buyout. because that's where it goes from there. And we can talk new coaches. And I know you asked about the offensive side of the ball. And, you know, I know we'll get to Garrett Green, but I think more specifically why Neil Brown is still here. One, I don't think anyone wanted to pay him, but two is it buys a lot of time for this new athletic department to kind of get the feel for everything, figure out the foundation and go from there. It actually, I think in the grand scheme of things, is going to be a good thing for West Virginia. Now, turning to this year in the offense, I mean, that's the question, Ryan, right? It's yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic with the offense this year. Chad Scott, it sounds like, is going to be calling the plays, but I wouldn't be surprised if Neil Brown didn't end up calling the plays. There was a lot of pressure on Neil to bring in a new style, a new voice, and they brought in Graham Harrell, a Texas Tech guy, last year, and it didn't work with JT Daniels. Their offense didn't take a step. I keep saying this under Neil Brown. They have struggled to have an identity. Their best year was the COVID year, and they were really good defensively, and they didn't make mistakes offensively to kill themselves. Basically, it was more of a game managing style of play. But then other years, their offensive struggle. Last year, offensively, they were okay, but they took a step back defensively. So they've never been able to marry one another, where they've been really good offensively and defensively at the same time. In result, why you're 22-25 after 4 years.
I mean, we're entering year 5. This is like his back is against the wall. I mean, they're going to have to at least, I would say, win 7 games to save his job for another year, at least. It's almost a good thing in a way for Neil, because it's kind of like back against the wall, try different things, experiment, see what works. Obviously, it seems like Ren Baker's going to give him a year, see what happens. And I like this offense. Like, we'll get into it in a minute, but I like the run dominant offense that they can do. The run dominant coach like Chad Scott at coordinator.
Yep.
They can't fail this. They can't screw up here, but we'll see.
Yeah, I totally agree in terms of like what the offensive philosophy and identity should be. Ryan, you alluded to that, and that sounds like one of the like ultimate sports cliches, but it's true. Like, there's no good team in any sport that doesn't have some kind of an identity. And like, if you ask me what West Virginia's is, I wouldn't know. And like, I watched a fair amount of West Virginia last season, but you know, turning the page from JT Daniels, from Graham Harrell, looking at some of your returning production, CJ Donaldson as a freshman was outstanding until the injury. He was averaging north of 6 yards per carry. Garrett Green, I think he'll be the starting quarterback. Not a huge sample size, but he's gotten some action over the last couple seasons. He's averaging north of 6 yards per carry. And so I'm looking at this and I'm like, whoever's calling plays, if they're not running the ball 40 times a game, in my opinion, something has gone wrong. Like, you don't want your quarterback toting the rock 20 plus times a game, but if Green has 15, Donaldson has 20, 25, and then you supplement that with other guys, I think that's probably the strategy. But y'all tell me if you think otherwise.
No, you're absolutely correct. So Ryan and I did an episode. When was this, Ryan? A couple weeks ago, about we did a whole football updates episode. And if you all check it out, Ryan and Rush Show on YouTube, Ryan brought up the 2020 season, and yes, that's kind of an outlier in the sense with it being the pandemic. But because of the situation of it being a pandemic, right? That has to strip you back to the basics and foundation. And what is that? Running the ball and game managing. And that's what you have to do, especially with Garrett Green, who should be the starter, because we can get into Nico in a little bit. While Nico definitely has a higher ceiling and more of that pro style quarterback and is supposed to be that, next guy at West Virginia, he'll have a chance to do that if he decides to stay here, of course. But Garrett Green, I was at the Oklahoma game last year. The guy, when it starts raining or it's gross or that fall weather comes, you want that type of quarterback that has that dual threat ability. And, we have a great running backs, and it's time to more get to that style of football where the other team thinks, hey, we're in this. We're going to beat West Virginia. We're going to beat West Virginia. And then they look up at the scoreboard and they're like, how did we lose that game? Well, it's because every play, you took almost the play clock all the way down. You were smart in how you managed your timeouts. You ran the ball, a little more gutsy, of course. We saw it in the Pitt game last year, but just trusting your backs because they're there. And everyone here is absolutely right, is you have to get back to fundamental. You have to do that. That is the only way they succeed, and the only way Neil Brown keeps his job this year is getting back to basics. And I mean, that alone should get you 5 wins right there. We'll talk about the other wins and what you have to do there, but you're absolutely right, Kyle. It's just goes back to fundamental smash mouth football.
Does NASCAR Neil have it in him to slow play and grind?
See, that's what I question. And that's why, honestly, I hope Scott calls the plays, because Neil has a tendency to get pass happy. And I think nobody ever wants to talk about your returning offensive line production, because there's no stats for offensive line. It's not sexy, but it's important and imperative. They return all 5 of their offensive linemen from the end of the season, where, like you said, when Garrett Green got the start, they went 2-1 down the stretch. They beat Oklahoma State, and they weren't going to beat K-State with the way they were playing at the end of the year. But they were able to run the ball just down people's throats. Green went for over 100 yards. Anderson, and you mentioned it, Donaldson. They got a bunch of talented backs. It's going to be interesting to see how they get all these running backs involved, because there's only one football, and they got 3-4 talented running backs. Tony Mathis actually transferred because the running back room is so crowded, but Jalen Anderson, Justin Johnson saw time when Donaldson went out. They don't have a choice. Like, I know that they want to be pass happy at times, and we keep talking about you got to play complementary football. You got to complement your defense by not turning the ball over. That has to be West Virginia's identity. They need to watch how Kansas State plays for them to have a chance to be successful and go bowling, in my opinion.
I mean, Neil's got to play his best guys. I don't see the argument in starting Nico unless he's actually better than Garrett Green. I don't see the argument in playing him here. I understand he's a 4-star recruit. He's entering his second year. He's got a lot of potential. I get that. But for what the position Neil's in right now, he's got to play Garrett Green. He's got to play guys who are ready. I really like the running back tandem they got with Donaldson, Justin Johnson, Jalen Anderson. I really like that. And then complementing that with Garrett Green, like they should rarely pass the ball. They also lost Bryce Ford-Wheaton, Sam James. Like, you lost your top 2 receivers. And to be honest, they really didn't gain much from the portal that could actually really replace that. Devin Carter from NC State, I like his game, but after that, they should be running the ball all the time.
Yeah, and you alluded to the offensive line as well, Ryan. Zach Frazier right in the middle of that, All-American. I just don't see how, with one of the best interior linemen in the country, with C.J. Donaldson and the other backs, and with a quarterback that averages 6 yards per carry and isn't afraid to lower the shoulder, I don't know how you're not establishing everything by running it up the gut first. And then if you want to do play action off of that, or once everybody's kind of playing in the box, then get it out wide. But it's a fireable offense if they don't run everything through the run game, and like, don't get fancy with it, don't get cute. Like, maybe do some zone read since you got a quarterback who can run, but use Zach Frazier, run it up the middle, and then build everything else off of that, in my opinion. And I think Garrett Green, Rob and I just kind of barely talked about this on our last episode. I don't think he's a guy who's on a lot of people's radar, but in the couple West Virginia games I watched, I had a lot of fun watching Garrett Green, and I think that he's a dynamic player. I think he's got a lot of potential, and if I'm looking at like a buy low sort of candidate in terms of if we're taking stock of quarterbacks in this league, I am shoving a lot of money in on Garrett Green. Rob needs to defend himself here.
No. Here's my only issue. Is he on Neil Brown's radar? Because he's been there, right? Garrett Green's been there. Garrett Green, if he had stayed in the game in Morgantown the last time Texas Tech was there, they win that game. West Virginia wins that game. If he plays more last year, you probably go to a bowl game. So this is year 3 of Garrett Green in Morgantown, or year 4? Year 4. And he's not been given the rock.
Yeah.
I know he's a junior. I don't know. Yeah. I think he started his visits in 2019. What is it? 2021?
Yeah, he's going to be a junior. Yeah. But in fairness to Neil and the staff, they brought JT Daniels in. And I think, like, you're bringing JT Daniels in to play. I mean, he started at USC. He was neck and neck with Stetson Bennett. If he doesn't get hurt, maybe he's won back-to-back national championships in Georgia. I mean, that's the if game. You can play that all day. But They definitely were a better team down the stretch when Garrett Green was quarterback compared to JT Daniel, just because of the style, the way that they changed their approach to the game. And you mentioned it too with the good offensive line play, good running backs. The other part about Garrett Green is he's good with his legs as well. So it opens up the RPOs and the play actions because he's a threat. I mean, you got to play 11-on-11 football because he's a threat to take off at any moment.
So to put a bow on the offensive discussion for now, who's going to catch passes in this offense? Like I just got through saying that y'all should run the ball 45 times a game, but you do have to throw it some, and you lose Bryce Ford-Wheaton. Beyond that, I don't think there's a guy who jumps off the page in terms of returning production. Like, are there any portal additions or young guys that are expected to make the next step that are pass catchers this season?
I think what Ethan was saying with Devin Carter, what is he, 4-star? I think he's a 4-star, maybe 3.
He's from NC State.
Yeah. So yes, that in terms of coming into this season, a name there's your name right there. Is so you go from like 2 names, as Ethan was saying, to 1, but this is also that season for West Virginia where it's, we can talk about it on all sides of the ball. The question is who's stepping up. And that includes the coaching staff as well. But that's definitely right. Vegas has us at 4.5 over under. Some people, ESPN's FPI is putting us at 2 and 10. Like which is ridiculous. That's not going to happen. But I just think that's the question at wide receiver is who's going to step up. You got a couple 3-stars coming in. You got a couple from other schools, but it's who wants it.
I think also they're going to throw the ball to their backs a lot. So I think you get Anderson and Johnson involved, where you kind of pound the rock between the tackles with Donaldson. Donaldson's proven he can catch the ball out of the backfield too, but I think the other 2 are better suited to do so, especially because, I mean, Donaldson's going to be the workhorse. I also think they're looking at the tight end room too. Yeah. They're hoping that guys can take a step forward. Cole Taylor, he showed flashes. Maybe he's another year in the system. So you talk about a ball control offense where you want to run the ball, go a lot of RPOs. I mean, you got to have good tight ends if you're going to play that style of football. So I think a guy like Cole Taylor could take a step back. Devin Carter is by clear and cut the number 1 receiver because he's the only guy that's really got production at the wide receiver position at the Power 5 level.
No, Rush, I agree what you said about guys stepping up. We've talked about Devin Carter this whole conversation. I mean, roughly 500 yards at NC State. Like, he's an experienced Power 5 player, committed to Penn State. Like, he flipped to West Virginia, so that says something. But outside of him, like, you have Jeremiah Aaron, Cortez Bram. But really, somebody's got to step up. Even if that's a Rodney Gallagher coming in from high school, somebody's got to step up at that wide receiver position or at the tight end position as well with Cole Taylor.
Yeah, and Cole Taylor is in the tight end position, right? Is you don't need anything sexy, right? You kind of need that Trevon Wesco again. I get he played in the NFL or he's playing in the NFL. I mean that in more is blocks when he needs to block and when he's open because he makes catches. It's like we're saying, we don't need to complicate this and hit every X and O and everything. It's just keep it simple, right? Is a tight end that just when he's open, because he will be. I mean, you can only cover so many receivers and running backs if you run your formations correctly. He'll be open. It's just, can he catch the ball? That's the question. So,
are any of you going to attempt to throw a wet blanket on my Garrett Green hype train, or do you feel like that's justified and that I should be as excited for him as I am?
I'm excited for him. I'm with you. I think he's underrated. I think he just hasn't had an opportunity. He's kind of just been behind guys that have been a little more highly recruited or highly touted, like JT Daniel. I mean, you bring in that big a name, you're going to start him. So I'm excited to finally see Garrett Green get his opportunity from day number 1. Like you said, he's been in the program for multiple years. He was behind Deggy before that. So, yeah, I think with the way that they're approaching the game, I think he's going to have a good year.
Kyle, you're right on. I want to see Garrett Green have a full year. He's been behind Jared Deggy. Neil Brown didn't want to make the switch. I understand JT Daniels. I mean, you're definitely promising him something. So for them to go half the year and then actually bench him that said something. So I'm excited to see Garrett Green get a full year. Hopefully, the end of the year was just a different energy, and he's just that tough guy. Like, I just think of like him playing at Norman 2 years ago, 8 o'clock kickoff, and he's down there driving first quarter for a touchdown. Or the Oklahoma game in Morgantown this past year when it was raining, and he's just that tough, gritty guy you need.
Yeah, I love his game. I think West Virginia fans really endeared themselves to me when when Rob and I picked West Virginia to be our March Madness team and made our logo blue and gold. A West Virginia fan added a coonskin cap to it.
Yeah,
and it's his profile picture on Twitter. It's like a Garrett Green fan page, and so I don't just like him because his initials are GG. I think he's actually a really fun ball player to watch. But anyway, he's probably one of my favorite players in the conference that doesn't play for Texas Tech.
If I had to put like a player comp on him, like with the NFL, I would compare him to a guy like Taylor Heineke, a guy that's like undersized. He's 5'10", 5'11". He doesn't have the biggest arms, not the most accurate guy in the world, but he's a gamer. He just, like you said, he makes tough plays, grinds games out, whether it's rain, shine, snow. He's a badass. So, I mean, he's a competitor. So that's what we got in Garrett Green. I'm with you guys. Looking forward to seeing a full year with him.
Hope Neil Brown feels the same.
Yeah, me too.
Defensively, one of our questions, we had a mailbag. I'm going to steal it from the mailbag. Are there any stills left? Because those guys have been
no more stills.
We're officially done.
Finally, good job. What's the defense looking like with the stillless, the front line?
Well, the secondary is with Burks. I mean, you can. I don't know how to explain it, but West Virginia always has someone in the secondary that's like supposed to be like the next top 10 draft pick. And that's going to be Burks this year. Definitely one of the best defensive backs. I don't know if he'll be top 10 pick, but understand what I'm saying is it just seems like there's always that one. I mean, now I can't think. Carl Joseph is, when we were students here is who we were watching. And then of course you got Pac-Man from years back and that sort of thing. There's always that one. So at least leading off the defensive discussion is he's going to be that one where it's like, oh, thank God he's back there.
I think up front, we lose our 3 top guys from a production standpoint, but from like a top 9, top 10 guys, we have all the good role guys back. So we have a lot of depth back, guys that kind of like Garrett Green that have been in the program, but they just haven't had a chance because they're playing behind the stills. I mean, you're not going to play over those guys because they're NFL guys. So I think it's a good unit. Added a couple pass rushers as well in the portal. So yeah, I think this is once again going to probably be the strength of the defense. It feels like every year in and year out, we are able to recruit solid on the defensive line, whether it's the stills or pass rushers. We've done a good job in the trenches on the defensive side.
Yeah, I think with Dante Stills gone, for Big 12 fans, finally he's gone. He's like Harry Ellis in college football. But with Dante gone, that defense is going to have to find a new leader, whether that's Aubrey Burks. It has to be somebody. And I'm worried about that secondary after Burks. Those guys have a lot of talent and they have a lot of potential. Like we've been saying, West Virginia, their staff has been able to recruit the defense really well, like out of high school. But when it comes to the secondary and they try to fill in with depth, they're going through the transfer portal and they're getting guys from, like, for example, the MAC schools, which isn't a problem. That's good depth. But at some point, like, some of those guys have to step up. And last year that was an issue in the secondary.
Is Jordan Jefferson coming back or is he done?
He transferred to LSU.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another Jefferson at LSU.
Yeah, he was a dude. I'm looking at his stat line from last year. He only had 31 tackles, but 9.5 of them were for a loss. And then he also was co-leader on the team in passes defended. So he's like all over the place.
Yeah, he's a stud. Reason he's going to LSU.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dang, that's a big loss.
And another insight, a little birdie told me, from high up in an athletic department or a team around here, that someone was saying like, how are we looking this year? And they said, well, we're not worried at all about the defense. It's the biggest question is the offense. So a very reputable source. So take what you want with that. Take it with a grain of salt. Just I trust this, but that they got to play the game at the same time too. So
yeah. Well, I think we kind of loosely alluded to it, but with the portal being such a prominent component of building a roster, building a program, give me like 2 or 3 guys incoming, and we might have already discussed them, but that y'all expect to make an impact that weren't on the roster last year.
I'll go up front on the defensive side. You mentioned it. You lose the Stills and you lose guys in the transfer portal, but you bring in guys like Davion Hawkins and for Tamora Mulba. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that name. So when he records his first sack and I hear it on the overhead, I'll know exactly how to pronounce it. But
hopefully
I think it's some guys
calling it on TV.
Yeah, no doubt. Against Penn State week 1, by the way. So we don't have a cupcake in week 1. So yeah, I think those 2 guys. They're coming from a Division I program, so I think they got to make an immediate impact, and there's playing time available.
Are you talking defensive end or just transfer portal in general?
At any position, offense or defense, really.
Interested in. Sorry, you might have said this, Ryan. I broke up on my end for a bit. Did you say? Okay, at the Ryan and Rush show, we're really working on pronunciations. We're still kind of getting into this, so forgive us. When BYU comes to town with all the Tongans, that's gonna be a great episode. So, just saying that right now. Montra Miller, the cornerback. I'm curious too because we're bringing up wide receivers earlier. Jay Sean Polk. Really, that could be your number 2 that steps up, comes over from Kent State. Could definitely come up and play. Those are my 2. Is one from offense, one from defense. I'm curious kind of to see how those play out. Especially they both have someone in their position that's above them. So can those both those guys be solid number 2s?
Well, we already talked about Devin Carter and Cole Taylor on the offensive end. I actually like the Beanie Bishop pickup at cornerback from Minnesota.
Great last name.
I just talked about how the staff seems to fill in depth with group of 5 secondary players. And last year they just got burnt by the end of the year. And I think bringing in a guy that's played at the Power 5 level for a few years at this point, it's like the same as Devin Carter on the offensive end. Like West Virginia's going to take that. I will take that. Like they know what to expect. They've played in the ACC or the Big Ten, so having a Big 12 schedule in football, it's not going to kill them by the end of the year.
Rob, what else you got?
Well, I wanted to look at the schedule. Looking at the schedule, Penn State, Pitt, that non-con is pretty good. Of course, you get Duquesne in there, but going around Pitt and Penn State, and then your first matchup in the Big 12 is Texas Tech.
That's been a great game under Neil Brown.
Yeah,
for 2 of us of the 5 on the call.
How does that feel with those first 4 games?
So the first 3, it's actually funny how they have this split up. So we're calling the first 3 the non-con, the War versus Pennsylvania with Penn State, Duquesne, Pittsburgh. All those in a way prime time. Even Duquesne, the 6 o'clock game. I mean, that's a good start. Penn State, the goal for that game is, I think, it's an 18.5 point spread. Correct me if I'm wrong. Cover. Just give us hope. Give us okay. Yeah, we shouldn't win this game, but they stayed in it the whole game. Duquesne gets stuff right, and then we're on to Pitt. And I'll tell you what is, if we don't beat Pitt, or it's not one of those games where it's really close, we lose in double overtime and it's a blown call by an official, I think boosters are going to start pulling together their money for Neil Brown. I wouldn't even go into the Texas Tech game. I mean, we'll go into it for the purpose of it, but you have to look at those 3 kind of separately before you start getting into Big 12 play.
The Pitt game last year was brutal. that pick six. Like I thought y'all had them. I thought that was going to be a great, Thursday night special edition of College Game Day, first iteration of the Backyard Brawl in a decade, and y'all were like this close to going in there and winning at Pitt, and I thought it would have been awesome, and just a bad bounce. I mean, like that's really what it was. The interception wasn't even a bad throw or anything. So I hope y'all can exact revenge on Pitt this year in the non-con.
Yeah, I think that game kind of set the tone for the season because that game kind of spiraled into 2 losses. We overlooked Kansas. Nobody knew that Kansas was going to be as good as they were going to be, and we gave that game away late. So all of a sudden, we should have been 1-0 with the ranked win at Pitt. Next, thing you know, we're 0-2, and you're fighting uphill the rest of the way. That honestly, you're right. That tip ball or not going for it on 4th and 1 was the difference between 5 and 7. And probably 7 and 5, and we're singing a whole different tune with Neil Brown. So same situation. I mean, Pitt's the game on the schedule. I don't think any of us think they're going to be Penn State, but I mean, it's college football. You got to play the games. We're from the naked eye. I mean, we're one of, I think, 6 or 7 programs that have 11 Power 5 games again. I mean, it's not like the SEC where it means more where they play 8 conference games and they beat up on Austin P and Murray State in freaking November. So that's why Texas and Oklahoma are going there. They need some wins over Sam Houston State.
Yeah, well, and don't knock Austin P because their recruiting class right now is neck and neck with Houston. I don't know if y'all saw that on Twitter today.
Yeah,
they're tied right now for the best recruiting class in the country. Houston fans love that tidbit, by the way.
What Houston fans? You've met some? Where are they?
You have to draw them off sides. They will not interact with you unless you get them on the defensive. But I think it'd be really cool if y'all beat Penn State because that's like the first, NBC primetime Big Ten game, and they're going to show off that production. And if it's them losing at home to a rival Big 12 school, that would just be glorious. And so I know it's an uphill battle, no pun intended with the climb and all that, but if y'all could pull that off, that would be epic. I hope y'all do it.
Well, I mean, the good thing about playing them the first game of the season is you have literally all off season to prepare for one game. So it's not like you're playing them week 3 and, it's, you've just got off of 2 other games. So, I mean, week 1 in college football, Ryan and I were just talking about it on the show recently. That's the week where that's when you have the Appalachia State, Michigan games. That's when you have those crazy, like, oh my gosh, games. So yeah, you're right. I mean, that's the time of the year you do want to play them.
They have to go 2-1 in the War of Pennsylvania. Like they have to, because right after you have Texas Tech and Morgantown, which hasn't worked ever, seems like TCU and Fort Worth, you're not returning. You're not playing the national title appearance team TCU, but they're still going to be a good TCU team this year. So it does, and the schedule doesn't get easier after that. Everybody looks at the new 4 teams and those will be easy wins. No, they won't. They won't be easy wins.
Nothing's been easy.
Especially for West Virginia, those games won't be easy. Like West Virginia has to go to UCF in the bounce house. That's a good environment. UCF has 9 wins in the American. It won't translate to 9 wins in the Big 12. That's still a hard environment to win at. Just stuff like that, even a BYU or a Cincinnati. So they're going to have West Virginia's going to have to go 2-1 against the Pennsylvania teams in a non-conference, and then hopefully pray that they steal a game against Texas Tech or TCU before heading into October.
So a quick prop bet for y'all. I know that Pitt is obviously the arch rival, and you want to avenge that loss from last season, but Penn State is going to be a higher ranked team coming in. If you could only win one of those 2 games and it meant you automatically lose the other, which one would you rather win?
Pitt.
You have to beat Pitt.
Okay.
But that I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's not.
I think it would be different if West Virginia and Penn State have played recently. They haven't played in 30 years. I would say for all of us, our generations don't really have that same connection to the rivalry as like our dads or grandparents do. So
that makes sense.
Yeah,
makes sense.
Hey, speaking of real quick to your guys' schedule, who put the at Wyoming game on the schedule? Whose idea was that? Talk about trap games. I mean, with Oregon on deck, I saw that. And I'm like, oh my God, you got to go to Laramie?
So that's a home and home. And I thought that was during because they're so far ahead. Was that during the Cliff era?
I think
that
so.
was actually scheduled, and then the home game was supposed to be in 2020, so you don't play that home game. I think it's on the schedule for much later, but yeah, this is technically a return trip to Wyoming, to a trip that Wyoming hasn't made to Lubbock yet. But yeah,
that's a scary game, man.
That is a scary game, and it's going to be a 16-point line, 14.5, 15-point line, and that's even more nerve-wracking.
Oh, I already know who I'm betting on in that game.
No, because it's going to be jumping, especially with the elevation in Wyoming. I mean, that's not a who. I think UCLA went there a couple years ago and just got freaking drilled. I mean, anytime you get those group of fives that get a power five coming into them, it's like a hornet's nest.
Yeah, well, and we've stepped in it before. This is going back a ways, but okay, so I don't know if West Virginia fans deal with this with any of y'all's rivals, but like if Texas Tech ever beats Texas or OU or whatever, their fans immediately do the whole like, oh, well, we were your Super Bowl. We always get your best shot. Like this is the one game y'all care about. It's rare that Texas Tech can say that about an opponent, but in 2004 we went to New Mexico and they beat us, and I think that 2014 they won like 9 games with the bowl. That was the team that beat Aaron Rodgers and Marshawn Lynch in the Holiday Bowl, and so like it was like, why are we going to Albuquerque to play this game in the first place? Especially when you lose. We've had a couple close calls in El Paso. Time zones are weird in Texas. We're Central Time. El Paso is Mountain Time. So we're kicking off at like 9 p.m. out there. And, they like the 06 team that, again, was a pretty solid team with like Graham Harrell and those guys almost lost to UTEP. I think it went into overtime. And so this Wyoming game kind of reminds me of those two setups. It's like, I don't know how I feel about this, especially laying 13.5 or 14 points.
And high expectations. I mean, the way you guys finished last year, and to your other point, there's nothing better than when Texas goes 5-7. But don't worry, they were your Super Bowl, so that makes it better that you beat them.
Yeah.
All right, we do a mailbag segment, so we've got some questions from listeners for you guys. We'll kind of do rapid fire. There's some silly ones and some serious ones. Mostly silly though from our audience. First on realignment, who are some of your dream ads to the Big 12 from the Mountain Man's perspective?
So that are joining this year or to come?
If you could add a few, like even ACC's on the table, whoever you want, if you could have 2 dream ads to the Big 12, who would they be?
Pitt, I would say. Let's bring that back. And Utah. And I'll explain. Okay, I'll give you a quick Reader's Digest version. Okay. I was actually born in Provo, Utah. Both my parents and brother went to BYU. I'm the reject. I'm the converted West Virginian. I chose beer. But like that's another thing is, and that's why. That's why I brought up the Wyoming thing, because I've seen BYU get slaughtered by Wyoming in Wyoming like time after time, especially in the 90s. So the Holy War. So I'm taking more of kind of the traditional with West Virginia Pitt rivalry, but I also that's why I'm so happy BYU is joining the Big 12 this year. And of course they're playing in Morgantown the day I'm getting married. Couldn't change the wedding date. Fiance wouldn't let me. I tried so hard. Ryan's not happy either because he's a groomsman, but that's a conversation for another time. So the non-traditional, I want Utah in there. You got to bring back the Holy War.
Pitt's easy, number one for me. I mean, I like Yormark's approach where he's kind of being a contrarian and going all in on basketball, saying we're going to be solid in football, but we're going to be by far the most superior college basketball conference. So I like the UConn. But, I mean, if I really had to choose and they would never come back, it would be Nebraska. I never thought Nebraska should have ever left. They're a Big 12 school. They're right in the middle of Big 12 country. And honestly, they've been dog shit ever since they left.
I'll help the West Virginia fans out. And Pitt, I think that's our undisputed. That's got to be one of them.
Yeah.
And I like the UConn one to a point. Like, they got to get better at football. Obviously, they can't be they can't be Kansas before Leopold. So, I would add in a Virginia Tech if we're talking unrealistic on the East Coast and ACC school. Virginia Tech and Pitt. If we're talking realistic, probably expanding to the Pac-12. Probably Colorado and Arizona.
How about Syracuse? Does that move the needle for West Virginia fans?
It's better than nothing.
Yeah.
I think Yormark's a New York guy from his days in pop culture with Jay-Z. So he loves New York City. I mean, he was there with K-State when they were in the Garden. He wants that New York. That's why he's all in on UConn, in my opinion, because he wants UConn has such a strong draw in the New York City area. I think Syracuse would be a good draw as well, though. I mean, UConn's got stronger ties in the New York City area than Rutgers. That was the whole reason why the Big Ten brought Rutgers in, because they wanted that New York market, even though nobody really cares about Rutgers.
Yeah. I think Syracuse, like you're saying, Syracuse would pair really well with UConn, like if they both came at the same time. I think a lot of schools are that way. Same with like Pitt and Virginia Tech, if they both came, or like Louisville. I think you could pair with anybody we've talked about.
Louisville would be a good one.
Yeah.
I think the thing you have with Syracuse, though, is I'm curious how the dynamic with Boeheim not being there anymore, because that does change things. Like if this was 10 years ago, then bring him on. Like it does. We'll see type of thing. Yeah. But I know what you're saying.
Hey, Rob, speaking of expansion, doesn't Rahino Barbecue have some expansion options in the work? And sorry, guys, we got to get to these ad reads real quick.
Got to get paid.
They're soon going to Rahino Barbecue Market. There'll be a brick and mortar, but the same great barbecue in tow. You can go see them in Olton. Order early online, RahinoBBQ.com. Before you get there, you can go pick it up. They sell out quick, but they're open Thursday through Saturday, 11 a.m. till sellout. But coming soon, 7 days a week, they're at Rahino Barbecue and Market when they open. All right, back to some questions. How many couches have you burned after a win?
I've passed out on a few. You can't do that anymore. I don't know if she's still the mayor of Morgantown, but the mayor of Morgantown. Do you know what something that really angered me is I was looking up something recently, and I think it was during election time to see who the candidates were, and like the mayor of Morgantown. And one thing she promotes that campaign for, she's like, I was the one who banned burning couches, thinking like, oh, I'm like, why are you I would not be promoting that. Number one. Number two, why? You should do it in a designated. Why don't you make control areas for people to burn couches and do it in a safe manner? But no, it's unfortunately gone really downhill. It doesn't really happen anymore, but a lot of passing out on couches happens still.
I've only seen pictures of it. It was out of my time when I was I just graduated, so I didn't see any burning couches. So Ryan and Rush, you're all on the burning couch train, I'm sure.
If I admit, am I gonna get in trouble? 2. They both were top 5 wins. 2014, we beat Baylor at home. There was the year that TCU and Baylor both had 1 losses, and somehow Ohio State leaped them both. Still trying to figure that one out. And I think it was 2014. The Baylor's 1 loss of the year was to us. And the other one was 2012 when we beat Texas, the first year in the Big 12. Tavon Austin, Geno Smith went into Austin, got it done. That was as crazy a night in Morgantown as I recall. I mean, until we beat Pitt this year.
I have also burned 1 couch, but it was not after a win or anything. It was just out on the farm.
It was just time.
Yeah, burned a couch.
There you go.
If you do get into legal trouble for burning a couch, another one of our sponsors is an attorney here in Texas, Barnett, Howard & Williams law firm. They handle all sorts of cases. I don't know if they specialize in couch burning, but they are one of the only law firms in the state of Texas certified for Title IX student litigation. They do catastrophic injury, criminal defense. They hope you never need them. Do not break the laws of Morgantown and burn couches. Unless you beat Penn State or Pitt this year, then have at it. And then call Barnett, Howard & Williams, bhwlawfirm.com. One thing I will say, Rob and I are basically just 2 jamokes doing a podcast. One thing we do have down pretty well is the ad read segues.
They're clean.
Finds their way into each episode. So,
all right, start, bench, cut these favorite nicknames for moonshine: White Lightning, Mountain Dew, and Firewater. If you're familiar with start, bench, cut.
White Lightning, you said?
White Lightning, Mountain Dew, and Firewater.
Start, White Lightning, bench, Firewater, cut Mountain Dew. And that's probably the original Mountain Dew. I think it gets, I don't like double names. Like, do you mean the soda or do you mean that? So that's my logic. But White Lightning, I kind of like that.
Yeah, I'd probably go the same.
I'll go the same as well, just because of the Mountain Dew. Like,
Yeah.
White Lightning's that's a perfect moonshine name.
Yep.
They actually nicknamed me White Lightning back in the day when I ran a sub 5 40-yard dash.
A young Wes Welker.
Yeah, there he goes.
I had an old neighbor in college. I would go over to his house and he'd just be making it in his kitchen. Be like, "How many do you want?" I'm like, "Oh, take 3 of them." They were cheap. He would sell them to me so cheap too. It was great. I haven't seen many couches being burned, but I've seen a lot of moonshine being made. So I guess it evens out, right?
I got to try some moonshine. There were some West Virginia fans in Lubbock last year for the game, and they were tailgating, and they had some homemade moonshine. It was really good. I loved it, and I look forward to being in Morgantown someday soon, hopefully. I also can't go this year because of a wedding, but maybe next year, year after that, depending on how the schedule shakes out, I need to go have the authentic stuff there in West Virginia.
Oh, yeah, we got plenty of it. And that was the highlight of our trip to Lubbock this year, the moonshine, because there wasn't much to be happy on the field. That was that probably was rock bottom of the season, that game.
That game hurt. And
there was plenty of rock bottoms, but that was Texas Tech was probably once again our rock bottom.
It was over in 5 minutes.
Oh my God.
That was total rock bottom.
I'm not going to pile on here.
Pile on.
A group of out-of-town guys want burgers and wings after a game. Fat Daddy's, Iron Horse, or 4th and Goal?
Fat Daddy's, Iron Horse, 4th and Goal. After the game, I go to Kegler's, honestly. But I know that's not the Fat Daddy's, Iron Horse. Got to go. Okay, so I'm going to give Fat Daddy's nothing but love. It's Fat Daddy's is that Ryan and I have had some great nights that will.
It's not a place you go get food, though.
Yeah, it's. I'll just. They're either the starter bench. I'm not going to cut them just because of our love. 4th and Goal. I know I've had wings there. I just don't remember having wings there. And Iron Horse. I mean, yeah, not bad.
Yeah,
it's pick your poison.
If you're not going to Mario's or Kegler's, I'm going to 4th and Goal for wings.
Yeah,
out of those 3, I think I'm going to 4th and Goal.
I agree.
Do y'all enjoy wings bone in or boneless?
Both, to be honest. I love them both.
It depends how messy I want to get. My go-to is boneless because I'm just not in the mood. But I also get their glorified chicken nuggets. Like I get they're not real wings, you know that. But the hot honey barbecue boneless wings at Kegler's are that's where you'll find me. It's delicious.
Where he's going in 20 minutes.
Yeah, there you go. You guys got me. You guys got me all fired up now.
We're all children, so we're eating boneless wings.
Yeah,
I'll eat bone in. I'll eat bone in. It just depends. Like if I want to get messy with it. Like I like bone in wings; they're good. But if I have to choose, I'm picking boneless.
Do you guys ever do that move where you're eating bone in wings and your hands are so messy? And you go to the bathroom to wash them off, but then you have to pee. So then you pee and then you wash your hands again. And the person saw you washing your hands and then you go back into the bathroom. Like, what is this guy's problem? Like, they don't know that it's do you know what I'm talking? Okay.
No, because I only get
boneless. That's a you experience.
Okay. That's a me experience.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe that's why I stick to bone. Exactly, Kyle. Maybe that's why I stick to boneless. But
here's how I know you're all boneless guys, because they're called traditional, not bone in. They're traditional wings versus boneless wings.
God, sure. It's like, how do you know someone's a disc golf guy? Because they're like, do you play ball golf or disc golf? Well, it's golf or disc golf.
I've never even heard of that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. That at least around here, or some people will say that. Like, oh, we're playing ball or disc, and I'm like, well, you're a disc golfer, so.
No, I'm fine with boneless wings. It's traditional or boneless. That's all it is.
You're right.
Have you ever been told that you sound like Ryan Reynolds?
Who?
You, Rush.
Me?
Yes.
Well, maybe I can make some money.
I can
like
hear
an animated movie.
Put on like a Deadpool mask.
Yeah.
Jeez, I'm honored. You're making me blush. Or the room's getting hotter because of all the equipment. But hey, I'll take it. Thank you.
All right. Are you tired of every West Virginia food for Big 12 tournaments being pepperoni roll based?
No.
No.
Honestly,
No.
what other signature? Like West Virginia's got other signature foods, but pepperoni rolls, I think that's a very unique one to where only West Virginia can claim and kind of showcase at those Big 12 tournaments.
Can y'all explain what a pepperoni roll is? Because I think some people who aren't from there are imagining like Totino's, and I know that's not what it is.
Do you want the? I can give you like the history.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
if that's all right. I met a couple years ago. I was at Myrtle Beach, and I met this guy. This guy had like a West Virginia golf cart, and I'm like, "Oh, hey, how's it going? I live in Morgantown." He's like, "My name is James Morgan. My family settled Morgantown. That's where it comes from. Settled down, yeah, in 1611." I'm like, "Wow, I didn't expect to see this here." But he's like, "I got some pepperoni rolls. Come over." And he told me this whole story. He said the coal miners would take like a loaf of bread and stick pepperoni in it, and they would go down in the coal mines where it was warm, and the grease from the pepperoni would create kind of that a lot of people want to put cheese in there, but you're not supposed to. If you want to talk about traditional, like it's just, and so the oil from the pepperoni is what kind of lubed it up, and that's where you got pepperoni rolls. It was just really convenient for the coal miners. So traditionally it's just pepperoni and bread, and then the oils are what give it the flavor.
And then they added cheese in the stores, basically. So,
Yeah.
Can't go wrong. Sounds good to me.
Oh yeah,
Very
Oliverios has
very
the best
simple.
pepperoni rolls.
They
It's a
do.
very simple dish.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. I didn't know that was a thing until Yormark started doing Big 12 concessions. So need to add that to the list with moonshine.
Yep.
Yormark's like, "Oh, we got to get West Virginia moonshine in here." If he does that, he would be. I'll put his statue outside, right next to Milan Puskar.
Well, why are we not having a cocktail bar along with these foods?
Oh yeah, you'd have like the Chilton for Texas Tech,
Uh-huh.
moonshine for West Virginia.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm down. Who is on your Mount Rushmore for all sports West Virginia athletes? And does it involve Kevin Pittsnoggle?
Oh, I was just about to say, if one of y'all says Kevin Pittsnoggle,
He does not make my Mount Rushmore, although he was a great player.
We hate Kevin Pittsnoggle.
Number one is easy. Jerry West is by far number one. I mean, he's the logo of the NBA. So we can do this by committee. I'll go Jerry
I like
West
committee.
number one.
You gotta throw Major in there.
I was gonna say Major would probably be number two.
I'm trying to think of a good like modern. You throw Pat White in there?
I was gonna say
Pat White, yeah.
And then
Who's that for? It's always the fourth that everyone's like.
if you go old school,
Day, you could throw Tavon, Hot Rod.
Bob
I probably
Huggins.
would go Day. Actually, yeah, Bob
Yeah,
Huggins.
probably Bob. Yeah, actually, you will. Yeah,
Yeah.
player
Yeah.
and coach.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you go. Your former employee. Not even thinking of your former employer.
No,
Ryan.
I was thinking players. He's got enough awards. He's in the Hall of Fame. So who'd we go? We went Jerry West, Pat White, Major, and Hugs.
Hugs,
Yeah,
yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that too. I think Pat White and Steve Slayton as a duo were my favorite players,
Yeah.
like on an opposing team or a team that I didn't really follow. And of course, everybody talks about using them in the video games, just like speed option, speed option, speed option.
It was cheat
Absolutely
mode.
unstoppable.
Yeah.
Love those guys.
That was a national brand. Like that was like with what Rich Rod did with that offense. That was like he was so ahead of times, and everybody was like a West Virginia fan at that time just because of the way Pat White and Steve Slayton played together, and Owen Schmidt.
Owen Schmidt, what a guy. What a
Yeah.
name.
The runaway beer truck.
Yeah,
Um,
busted his head open.
All right, I've got a question for y'all. If there are any Iowa State fans streaming, turn it off now. I was not aware of this, but like Iowa State makes a big deal about their pedestrian bridge. I'm sure y'all have seen that all over social media. And so in like peak off season last year, we ranked the best bridges in the Big 12, put them number one because like who else are we going to put there? And a bunch of West Virginia fans replied as they're like, this is the, what is it called? The River Gorge.
New River Gorge.
Yep.
Yeah. And like, I didn't know that was there. And some West Virginia fans are like, well, that's like far enough away from campus. It doesn't really count. But I'll say it now. And I don't care who's watching. y'all have the best bridge in the Big 12.
Thank you.
And
yeah.
I feel
It's
like
on
that's
a
not
quarter.
talked about enough.
Hang the banner.
Yeah. Like
It's on
Iowa
the state
State,
quarter.
Iowa State thinks they have the market cornered on this. And I'm like, guys, if more people were aware of what they've got going on in West Virginia, we would have a serious bridge battle atop the conference here.
At the end of 2020, they made it a national park. The river was like a national river, but it's a national park now.
Yeah.
But it's a great looking bridge. I agree.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. It's hidden. It's like 2+ hours away from campus, outside of Fayetteville, I think. Yeah, on your way to Beckley in the southern part of the state after you pass through Summersville. So, yeah, it's kind of hidden. It's hidden once you go down I-79, and then it turns into 19 before 77. So
It kind of is like, oh, there it is.
it pops
Like,
up. You don't see it coming, and then you're like, whoa, yeah.
You
It's
think it's going to
beautiful.
all this hype, like getting to it, and then just
Yeah.
all of a sudden you're on it. And
Yep.
you're actually, no, you're already past it. So.
Yeah, your stomach drops honestly, like when you get on it, because it's like you look down, you're like,
Yeah.
keep
It
this
does look
car
kinda
on this
creepy.
road.
So this bridge gets funding.
Yeah, watch out for that pothole.
Yeah. Rob, I think I only have one more. I don't know how close you are with the mailbag.
Okay. I've got one or two more.
You go first. Mine is a good one to kind of end on.
Okay. What's your favorite uniform combo?
I really like the country roads from last year. And I know that's kind of a new, I will say, and I know some people like the traditional West Virginia fans, shout out Nick's Notes, say that the all whites look too much like Penn State. I would say I also do like the all whites. I think they're pretty clean looking, but the country roads they released last year, I was like, whoa, they're sweet.
Those are beautiful.
Yeah.
Did y'all wear those 3 times last year? Y'all wore them more than once, right?
Twice.
Twice,
Pitt
yeah.
and Tech.
Yeah,
Okay.
Pitt and Tech.
Do you
Yeah, they
like
look-
the digital camo?
Oh yeah. What was that? 2010?
Well, you use it in baseball a lot, but
Yeah,
digital camo. I'm not a big fan of the digital camo.
I like the camo. I'm a traditionalist. I like the old school ones, the traditional ones, the blue jerseys, gold pants, blue helmets. I think it just looks clean.
Yeah.
If you're going traditional, that has to be the combo. Rush, I agree. Like I love the all whites, the stormtroopers. I see the argument. They look like Penn State, but if they could just like outline a little bit of gold in there, which they did with the country roads uniforms,
I
it
agree.
would be perfect. So like if I'm picking a combo, and I hope they bring them back. I don't know if they're actually gone or if they're returning or what, but wear those country roads uniforms. I would take that combo as like a main uniform combo, road and away or home and away.
I agree. They that should be like the new home or country roads. It should be the new away uniform, roads on the road.
Yeah. Yep.
And then for basketball, it would be the Blacks,
Oh, really?
the All Blacks, where they went when they went to the Final Four. That was the coal miner uniform.
Ren Baker was telling us like
Yeah.
every baseball game he goes or wherever event he is and people are coming up to us. He's like, dude, like 5 people have already asked like if we're going back to black uniforms. It's like, I don't know. I'm still trying. I'm trying to get you guys to figure out football coach. Well, he didn't really say, but he's obviously has bigger fish to fry than but it's like people just ask him all the time about the black uniforms.
People love the black uniforms, man.
Ryan, Rush, do you guys like the gold for basketball? Because like I see like mixed opinions on the gold. I like the gold a lot.
Yeah, I like the gold. I like him
With
at
the
home.
Flying Dove V.
Yeah.
Yeah. What Ethan, what are the one we were watching a game? You said you didn't like the white ones?
Yeah,
basketball?
no, the white and the gray. Like
I don't like the gray either.
I don't like the gray current ones.
Gray
Okay,
should be
think
black.
about the
I do
white.
agree.
Think about the white. Like I like what they got with the blue and the gold on it right now. It's clean. It pops
I
out.
agree.
Yeah.
But like I miss like growing up. Like I wasn't a West Virginia fan growing up, but like watching old Big East basketball or early Big 12 basketball with West Virginia, I just remember the West, the number, and then Virginia on like just going down the uniform. So like that's what I miss. But I like I like the color and the font they got currently.
I would actually change it. Basketball, the blue. The blues are the best. I really like the blue uniforms a lot.
All right, Kyle, take us home.
Okay, last one. It's a long one, so bear with me. There might not even be a question at the end. It might just be me talking, and then y'all can respond. But when West Virginia was first added to the Big 12, I don't mean this as like an insult or anything, but it's kind of a weird fit, and it felt like the Big 12 like needed to add just like a brand from the Big East to kind of stay relevant in that Power 5 discussion.
We were the outlier. I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
we agree. Yeah.
Y'all were kind of on an island, and I'm thinking like, well, that's weird. Like geographically, that doesn't make a ton of sense. And little did I realize at that point, we were heading toward a world where Piscataway, New Jersey, and Los Angeles, California would share a conference with each other. So it seemed weird at the time, but as 11 or 12 years have gone by, I feel more accustomed to it, and we're adding some schools in the Eastern time zone. Cincinnati's real close. I think Texas Tech and West Virginia had more ties to Texas Tech than almost any other school in the Big 12, even though we were the furthest from y'all. I don't know if y'all know this, but Texas Tech's very first bowl game, our opponent was West Virginia in the 1938 Sun Bowl, I think.
No kidding. That's awesome.
Yeah. Of course, John Denver, he wrote the anthem. He I think went to Tech for maybe 1 or 2 semesters before dropping out. He wasn't a mainstay here. Jim Carlin coached at both universities, and then in recent memory, the Neil Brown, Graham Harrell, Seth Dagey, Jarrett Dagey connection. And so I've always felt like, if y'all weren't so far away, this would, if y'all were located in Oklahoma or Texas, like this would be a really cool rivalry. But then as things progress, like I said, y'all get Cincinnati as sort of a travel partner. Y'all develop this kind of riot bowl with Iowa State, and then the Cycloneers deal with the softball and baseball teams. Do y'all feel more at home now and like less of a misfit? And I guess just talk about kind of your place in the Big 12 as fans and how you view things today versus a decade plus ago when y'all were first added to the conference.
Yeah. So actually, Ryan and I were just talking about this an episode or 2 ago. Is we went from absolutely West Virginia being the outlier to the conference and us needing to establish ourselves in a Power 5 conference. And of course, Texas A&M and Missouri left for the SEC, to now where they're having expansion talks at the Greenbrier and looking at Big East schools to add. Is it shifted from us being the outlier to your mark being like, hey, West Virginia actually might be the center of the new Big 12, is we're going from the Midwest to kind of over that where the Midwest and East meet, and West Virginia is a great place for that. So yeah, I agree. It was weird at first, but now I think it's working out great.
Yeah, it is ironic that it's gone from the outlier to kind of the center, come full circle in a decade plus later. Because I think we can all agree, none of us wanted to go to the Big 12 initially. We loved the Big East, the rivalries, the backyard brawl that everybody got to see for the first time in a decade, the hatred, the passion that should be played every year, and how good that basketball league was. But I think definitely just going to the different fan bases from the athletic department, basketball side of things. I've got to see all these different towns, college towns. I haven't got to see Cincinnati, UCF, BYU, and Houston. But the one thing the Big 12 has that compared to the other leagues is they're true college towns where the university and the athletic department, football or basketball, is king there. I mean, Texas Tech, everybody, it's all about the Red Raiders. Iowa State, it's all about the Cyclones. Manhattan, Kansas, it's all about K-State. So I think that's what the Big 12 has in common, and that's why the home court or home field advantages are just second to none compared to all the other leagues. It's not – we're not in the big cities, New York City or L.A. I know we're trying to expand into it, but the true backbone of the Big 12 is these college towns, Morgantown, Lubbock, Ames, and Manhattan, those places. So I love the Big 12.
In 2012, West Virginia wasn't a fit. They're out there. They're the outlier. In 2023, they fit perfectly, honestly. Like Ryan, you just said, like all the Big 12 schools, and even with the 4 new ones, it's a common, like you see it on Twitter. The fan bases are great for all 14 schools, even our departing friends in Oklahoma and Texas. But it's a shame back then, 11, 12 years ago, Big 12 couldn't add any of those old other Big East schools that were also falling, like a Louisville or a Cincinnati. Yeah. Cincinnati's back into it. Louisville can maybe get back into it in the next decade. But it's just interesting to see how Yormark's going to go about this. It's the common theme is to go get the Pac-12 schools that aren't obviously UCLA, USC. But I'm excited to see if he wants to expand out east and go up to New York and get a Syracuse or a UConn, or even down in the ACC, just down south in a Virginia Tech, or just somebody. It's going to be interesting because I think if he can establish all time zones for Big 12 football and basketball, it's must-watch TV.
Well, I'm glad y'all feel that way because I do too. And even as recently as like 2 or 3 years ago, I thought, it'd probably be better for them if they could find their way into the ACC with those regional schools, the old Big East rivalries that y'all talked about. But like, especially when we were just doing it as a bit on Twitter, but when we were looking for a March Madness team to root for and started interacting with more West Virginia fans, it was like, these guys are 2,000 miles away, but they're a lot like us in a lot of ways.
Yep.
And so I think it's a great fit. And like, we joke about it's all West Texas, but I do think there are cultural similarities, even though we're time zones apart, and you talked about it with the college towns example, but you go to Ames, Iowa, Morgantown, West Virginia, Lubbock, Texas, Stillwater, Oklahoma, you're going to find a lot of the same types of people with the same passion for their respective school, their state, their region, whatever it may be. And so I know y'all are still a hop, skip, and a jump away from the I-35 corridor where, the center of the conference is, but I still think it's a good fit culture-wise and love having West Virginia in the conference. I hope that we can kind of continue to build around West Virginia and add those Louisville, Virginia Tech type schools, maybe a decade from now. And I think it's a really good fit now. And I didn't think that a few years ago, but we love having West Virginia in the Big 12 and excited to hopefully continue growing rivalries as we get further and further into this.
You all have a place to stay in Morgantown. Got a nice setup here. We can do a live show here. You're welcome anytime.
And I think also to piggyback, Kyle, on what you said, the two schools that are leaving, I think has united the league to another level because everything was always about them getting their approval. And now they just, went behind everybody else's back for more money. They did what they had to do. Good for them. They're out. I think that the league is more united than ever. And I think it's going to be a better league going forward without those two personally.
It's cool to see how in 2 years, like the conference went from this dying conference after Texas and Oklahoma went behind our backs. But just with the immediate add-in of the 4 new schools and then now trying to go out west and east, like I'm excited for the Big 12's future. I think they're that third conference that can outlast the ACC and Pac-12.
Yep.
All right, thanks for joining us, guys. Ethan, Ryan, Rush, if you guys want to tell the people where to find you, we can wrap this thing up.
Ryan and Rush Show, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, especially trying to get to that, as you guys probably are too, that nice 1,000 subscriber mark so we can be eligible for monetization. We're slowly getting there. Actually, we've definitely ramped back up recently. So please, any subscribe means the world to us. Ethan, where can everyone in Dan Dockage find you?
That's Dan Dockage. You can find my Twitter at Ethan Bock _. I tweet a lot of stupid stuff. I just have fun on there, but I also try to provide great content for the basketball team at West Virginia. So I have fun doing it.
And you can also find us on the College Experience, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, where there's going to be a new show launching here in about 3 weeks, where the Gambling Gauchos will be future guests on, and Ethan Bock. So stay tuned. Follow us on Twitter for updates. It's going to be, like I said, Big 12, the future is bright. It's going to be fun.
Absolutely.
Love it. Well, thank you all for joining us. I wish we could play Country Roads on the way out, but YouTube will slap us with a copyright infringement.
Yep.
So
we could all just sing it.
Country roads, take me home. In my nice Ryan Reynolds voice. To the place I belong. West Virginia.
All right,
you guys.
See you guys.
Have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you.